I still remember the exact sound my pen made when it slipped out of my hand and hit the floor. Sharp, loud, final, like something breaking. 3 seconds earlier, I was just a teacher finishing up a long day. 3 seconds later, my past was standing in my classroom wearing a tailored suit, carrying himself like the world had always made room for him, and looking at me like he'd just seen a ghost. Because to him, I probably had been one. My name is Maya Brooks, and the man standing in front of me that day was Nathan Cole. The man who once loved me in secret left me in silence and went on to build a life where I was never supposed to exist again. It started with his daughter. Or, I guess that's how fate wrapped it. For 6 months I'd been teaching her. Bright kid. Too observant for her own good. The kind of child who sees things adults try to bury. She'd once told me casually, "My dad says you're different, in a good way." I smiled and moved on. I never asked questions, never wanted to know more. Some doors are better left shut. Then, one afternoon during parent conferences, the door opened and the air changed. He walked in holding her hand. Confident. Calm. Expensive watch, expensive shoes, that same posture men get when life has always bent for them. He was older, polished, successful, but his eyes recognized me instantly, and they went wide. My pen hit the floor. He whispered my name like it was something fragile. Maya. I didn't answer right away. I couldn't. My chest tightened, years of swallowed anger and grief slamming into each other. His daughter looked between us, confused. "You know each other?" she asked. I forced a smile. Professional, controlled. A long time ago. Nathan cleared his throat. Another lifetime. Yeah, for him maybe. This was my classroom. My space. The one place where I wasn't underestimated, ignored, or erased. And suddenly, he was in it, dragging a past I'd fought hard to survive. I sent his daughter to grab her project, pretending it was routine, pretending my hands weren't shaking. When the door closed, he took a step toward me. I took one back. Maya. "I didn't know," he said. "I swear. If I'd known it was you." "Stop," I said. My voice surprised even me. "Sharp. Steady. Don't do that. Don't act like this is some tragic accident." "I tried to find you," he said quickly. "After everything fell apart, I looked." I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it hurt. Looking isn't the same as choosing. You chose your career. You chose the version of your life where I didn't fit. Silence sat heavy between us. He told me his marriage was over, that he'd changed, that therapy had taught him a lot. I told him I didn't care, and I meant it. Whatever growth he'd found didn't erase the fact that he left me pregnant, broke, and invisible while he climbed into the spotlight. His daughter came back then, saving us both. I finished the conference like nothing was wrong. Praised her work, meant every word. She was incredible. And as they left, Nathan paused at the door. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "No," I replied, "we really don't." I thought that was the end. It wasn't even close. The real turning point came a week later in the principal's office. My daughter Lila had been called in for a disciplinary incident. Turns out, she and Nathan's daughter had stood up to a boy who decided to run his mouth about quotas and diversity hires. 11 years old, already parroting the poison his father fed him. When his father defended racism like it was an opinion, something in me snapped. I stood there calm on the outside, burning on the inside, and laid out my credentials. My experience, my right to exist in that building without being questioned. And Nathan, he backed me, publicly, firmly. No hedging, no polite silence. I watched the realization hit him in real time. What it costs to live in a body the world thinks it can dismiss. What I'd been carrying alone for years. That moment didn't fix anything, but it cracked something open. Later in the hallway, he apologized. Not for himself, for the world, for not seeing it sooner. Then my daughter looked at him and said flat as truth, "You're the man who hurt my mom." Yeah, that happened. I told Nathan to leave me alone after that, completely. And to his credit, he did. No texts, no surprise visits, no grand gestures. And that terrified me more than if he'd pushed. Because restraint meant growth. And growth meant my carefully built walls were suddenly under threat. Then his daughter collapsed at school. Fever. Ambulance. Hospital. He called me because he didn't know what else to do, and I went. Not because of him, because of her. Seeing him in that hospital waiting room stripped of power, of polish, of certainty, it changed something. He was just a father, terrified, helpless, praying he hadn't already failed too many times. We sat side by side in silence, united by fear. She pulled through. Antibiotics worked. Relief washed over us like rain after fire. We stayed through the night. At some point, he draped his jacket over my shoulders when I fell asleep sitting up. I pretended not to notice. A few days later, I listened to a podcast interview he'd done months earlier. He talked about losing the one person who knew him before success swallowed him. About regret. About trying to be better instead of impressive. He was talking about me. That's when I realized the real fight wasn't with him. It was with myself. With the part of me that still wanted to believe people could change. We met again. Neutral ground. A small coffee shop. No nostalgia music. No soft lighting. Just truth. He told me everything. How his manager had filtered his life. How he believed lies because they were easier than guilt. How therapy had forced him to confront the man he'd been. I didn't forgive him. Not then. I told him I wasn't the girl he left behind. That I'd built a life. A good one. Without him. I don't need you, I said. If this happens, it's because I want you. And that's a privilege, not a right. He nodded. No argument. No defense. So we went slow. Painfully slow. Coffee, walks, conversations where silence did as much work as words. He showed up, repeatedly, not perfectly, but honestly. My daughter watched him closely. One day she said, "He listens more than he talks now." That's how I knew something was different. The real explosion came months later when I was offered a promotion. Department head. A role people had quietly assumed wasn't for someone like me. I earned it. Every inch. And when Nathan celebrated without trying to claim credit, without turning it into a savior moment, I felt powerful in a way I never had before. The climax wasn't a wedding or a kiss. It was standing in my kitchen one night realizing I was no longer afraid of being seen, of being chosen, of walking away if I wasn't. When he finally asked me to marry him, I said yes, not because love blinded me, but because love stood still and let me decide. Here's the part people argue about. Some say I should have never let him back in, that people don't change, that power always wins, and sometimes they're right. But this story isn't about a man's redemption, it's about mine, about a woman who was underestimated, dismissed, erased, and still built a life so strong that when the past came knocking it had to ask permission to enter. So here's my question to you. If someone who once broke you came back, changed, would you let them try, or would you protect the life you fought so hard to build? Tell me what you think. Argue with me. Share your story. Because these conversations matter more than fairy tales ever will.